What is up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Make Every Second Count Live with me, your host, and international award-winning Make Every Second Count speaker. Wow, I'm so pumped up, and I'm always pumped up, I know. But tonight, I had a guest lined up, and then they changed his son's softball game or baseball game, and I had to find somebody else quickly. And I was really excited because I got somebody amazing for you here. Now, I ask you if you would please share this episode out, invite all kinds of people to watch it, and don't forget to give us all kinds of thumbs up, hearts, frowny faces, cry faces. Heck, you can even get mad at us. I don't care. Just help us trick the algorithm on one of the social media networks that we're on. But I also ask you if you would please keep the comments coming, because we want to have more of a conversation instead of making a presentation. But with no further ado, I would like to bring to the stage Miss Marci Hopkins.
Hello.
Hi, Marci. It's great to wake up with you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the name of my talk show. So it's always fun to play on those words.
Yeah. So if you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself, I'm gonna go be inviting a few people on my phone. So
Yep.
if I'm looking down, I am paying attention. I'm just doing this instead. Or
You got
also,
it. You got it. Hello, everyone. My name is Marci Hopkins. I am here in New Jersey. And Jeff and I met at the BTBY conference. So that was
you
super
should be what?
awesome. And I am the host and creator and executive producer of a nationally syndicated talk show called Wake Up with Marci. Primarily, you can see it in the tri state area. That's where I launched. New York, New Jersey, that's where I am. And I'm also the host of um, a IG Live, which, listen, I love to bring in inspiration and empowerment, and I have continued that on my IG Live called Wisdom Wednesday. So that's exciting because I always want to help people. I'm also the author of a book called Chaos to Clarity, which I'm so excited, Jeff, to share that it just won the International Impact Award in Addiction and Recovery. I'm actually going this weekend to receive my award in Arizona.
Woo!
Yeah, and I'm a motivational speaker, and I am a recovery expert and a media trainer because I've been in the media for over 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wow. That deserves my round of applause. So I know personally that life has a way of putting things in our way. You see, when I was 17 years old, I spent 2.5 months in a coma and 3.5 in the hospital after a severe car accident. I wasn't supposed to be walking right now, but I am. And I'm so happy to say that I am. So I know that life has a tendency to put things in the way, and it's not good that it does that. So has there been anything that life has tried to put in your way?
Mm. Yeah, Jeff, I mean, that started for me at a very, very young age. And I am, first of all, I am, your story. How incredible that you went against all odds and you made sure that you were going to walk again and you did everything that you could. And that is a lesson that we all can learn from. And there's so many of us sharing our stories that allow us to learn that we can do anything that we put our minds to. And for me, how everything started for me was my mother had me at a very young age, and she was with men that weren't so great. The way she chose men wasn't so fantastic, and so I had to deal with a lot of abuse by these men. I was beaten at 6 years old by one of her boyfriends. I had to make a choice at that time. Would I stay with my mother or move in with my grandparents? I chose to live with my grandparents because I didn't feel safe with my mother. And I was grateful for that time because they taught me values and morals. I went to church. I got to live a normal life for the most part during that time. Then my mother remarried when I was 12 years old, and I thought that I was going to have that perfect life that I had always wanted. I'd be back with my mom, and this man was our knight in shining armor, was going to give us this amazing life. And 6 months in, sexual abuse started. In addition to that, my mother was an alcoholic. And so I faced a lot of obstacles as a very young person. And the way that I ended up coping with that was with alcohol and getting into very poor relationships, having very little respect for myself, not having a lot of love for myself. I didn't know how to love myself, and I lived in a lot of shame and guilt and anger. And I built a lot of walls around myself and my heart, and I went into survival mode. And because of those things, I I struggled. I struggled for a lot of years, but I also had a lot of success in a lot of those years because, like I said, I went into survival mode and no one was going to hurt me again, and I was going to live the life that I wanted, Jeff.
That is so good. So I don't even know how to, man, that's really tough because sexual abuse at any age is despicable, but
Mhm.
at the early age of 12, that's gross.
Yeah.
And well, first of all, let me say I am sorry about that, but there's one thing that I noticed about your story, and one thing that could help the audience out there. Check this out, guys. So, her rough beginnings did not determine her future.
Hmm.
So, let me say this again. Her rough beginnings did not determine her future. She chose to be better. She chose not to be bitter, but to be better. And that is something that each person out there has the chance to do. Make a choice
Hmm.
and then really go for that choice. So, what is it that made you not want to let your rough beginnings affect your future?
So, Jeff, it did affect me in a lot of ways for a lot of years. I will say that. Meaning that I had difficulty getting close with people, even though I got married. It was hard for me. It was hard for me to connect. I never had any roots before. I'd never known truly what real love looked like. And so that was hard for me in the beginning. Then we had our children, and I found a love I never thought possible, that unconditional love for my children. And but it also stirred up a lot of pain from my past also because I realized, like, how could I feel all of this for my children and my mom didn't? I, but I do know now, Jeff, that my mom was sick and I have forgiven her, but that was really, really difficult. When I was in my 40s, how a lot of things started changing for me and where I started my road of decline, a real decline for myself, was when I decided to get in front of the camera in my 40s. I went after this lifelong dream of wanting to be a model or an actress, and that was something that I dreamed of in my teens. And when I did this, when I started putting it out there, the universe brought me all types of people that could help me make this happen. And I started off in commercial print and moved into indie films and such. But being in that world, living that roller coaster of a life, meaning you had to be available for auditions, you had to be available for the gig if you got it. I had to go to the city. I'd find out the night before that I had to go into the city. I had to go get training, and being a mom to younger kids and wanting to be there all of the time, it was a lot for me. And my husband worked all the time. And then also being in front of the camera and feeling judged all of the time brought up all of my insecurities and the self-loathing that I really had. And I decided that I would use wine as my liquid courage. So with that, my drinking increased because now I was drinking during the day. Maybe it was, a glass of wine before I went in for an audition, and then I'd be in the city and I would, whether the audition went good or bad, I would go for lunch and have a glass of wine. So my drinking started increasing. With my drinking increasing, this roller coaster ride that was putting me in a place of feeling so bad about myself all of the time started really affecting my relationship with my husband. I started having a lot of resentment because I was trying to balance going after this career and then also having to be there for my kids all the time. And I wanted to be there for my kids. I mean, I could have gotten help, but I didn't ever want my kids to feel the abandonment that I felt. So that was very important for me. So fast forward a few years into acting, my drinking got really, really bad. Towards the end, I started hiding my drinking. I was drinking more and more. I was surrounding myself with people that were drinking all of the time. I was not making good choices. My last day of drinking, I had gone for a modeling gig, and there were a number of things that happened, Jeff, but I ended up drinking a thermos of wine before I went on the red carpet, if you will, the runway. And I went out with a girlfriend afterwards. And as you can imagine, I had had way too much to drink. I was not eating very much because I was trying to stay thin and drinking my calories. And I ended up going into a blackout and I got behind the wheel of the car. And I didn't even realize that I did that. And somebody called it in that there was an erratic driver. I still believe, Jeff, that I had an angel helping me because I didn't harm anyone first, and then I didn't harm myself. And I was on the side of the road in my community, and the police came, and that's when I came to. And I ended up getting arrested. And my husband picked me up, and I thought, at that time I was still so angry, Jeff. It was just, the world was happening to me. Like everything was happening to me. I was being so wronged always. But the next day I woke up and something magical happened because God stepped in for me and I surrendered and I admitted myself that I was an alcoholic and I needed help. desperate help. And I was so afraid to ask for help. I'd never asked for help. I'd always been on my own, doing my own thing, or that's what I thought. So I admitted that I was an alcoholic to myself and thinking for sure that my husband was going to leave me and take our children. But we sat down on the couch and I admitted to him that I had a problem and I needed help. And he embraced me. He embraced me. And it was the first time that I felt true love. And I felt like the weight of the world came off my shoulders. I didn't have to live in the lies and the pain anymore. And the love that I'd been seeking my entire life was sitting right in front of me. And that's when I made the decision that I was going to turn my life around. And I went to AA and I never looked back.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is the story. I mean, a lot of people deal with that and they don't want to admit it. They live in a state of denial.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I'm not talking about a river in Africa, but they live in a state of denial. Sorry, stupid joke there. But
There's so many people that do, Jeff. I mean, it's very, very common.
yeah,
There's so many functioning drinkers out there, alcoholics, or it's actually called alcohol use disorder now because there's a huge spectrum when it comes to drinking. And it's a very, very difficult decision. And the thing is that no one can get you sober. It's a decision that you have to make for yourself. Mm-hmm.
so true. There's so many decisions that you have to make for yourself, not only with drinking, but with many things in life. And it's so important that you guys make the right decision, but it's hard to figure out what the right decision is. So, do you have any suggestions for people that are wanting to make the right decision?
Well, first, you have to look at what you're doing in your life. And is it affecting others around you? Because it's very telling how people are responding to your actions. And this is with anything. I mean, when it comes to addiction, there's so many forms of addiction, right? It can be working out, it can be a food addiction, it can be social media, it can be not be online playing video games. There's so many different ways. It's not just drugs and alcohol. And the thing is if you are noticing that you are affecting your job, the people you love around you, and even yourself, it's something that you really got to take a strong look at yourself and say, is what I'm doing something that that needs to change? Am I doing this to mask something that I've been in pain about for years? Or maybe it's something that's just happened. I mean, maybe you're going through a divorce and your drinking is elevated. Or maybe you've gotten on online dating and now you're being with random men or women just for sex, just to fill that void, right? And there's so much help out there. And my suggestion would be to start looking for groups that where people are have sought help themselves, that they're talking about what they've done, how they've helped themselves, or maybe where they're at any point. And there's there's so many groups, there's so many communities. Like for me, since I've started putting out so much about my story and my alcoholism, and I have been connected to a community of men and women on social media that are all doing the same, and that is living a sober life. And they are sharing all of the ways that they have gotten sober. It's not just rehab or it's not just AA. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so much help out there. And they themselves are now creating programs to help people to get sober in a gentle way. And the thing is that when people are going through these difficult times in their lives, they're living in so much shame. There's so much guilt. They feel like, how could I make this change in my life? But if you start seeing other people that are, then you see the hope. You feel the hope, and there's going to be something that someone says or does that's going to spark something inside of you that will help you to start making the first um, choice and step towards the changes in your life to live a better life. And there's the life on the other side is so much better. I promise you. I am just celebrated 9 years sober and sobriety,
9
9
years?
years of sobriety.
Wow. I thought it
And
was
I'm living
8.
the most beautiful life now, Jeff.
Yeah. That is amazing. I thought it was 8 years sober, and it's 9.
9 years.
Wow. Props on that. That is
Thanks.
quite the commitment that you've made there, and I find that to be very admirable.
Thank you,
So,
Jeff.
I know you were talking there a little bit about a group of like-minded individuals that are doing the same thing or have done the same thing as you.
Mm.
And how can people find those people?
Well, you can Google them and you can go on social media. I mean, there's so many groups on Facebook, on Instagram, but really, if you are seeking help in any area and you're just curious, all you need to do is Google whatever it is that you want to find out more about, the help that's available, and the groups that are out there. And I promise you, it's going to pop up for you.
That is awesome. So I know you have to run. You only have a half hour. So I'm going to cut this a little short, but so do you all right, you talked a little about a book. Can
Yes,
you tell us a little bit about that book and how we can get that book?
absolutely. So, my book is Chaos to Clarity: Seeing the Signs and Breaking the Cycles. And I was very guided to write this book to help others that are struggling in addiction, struggling in mental health, struggling from trauma of their past. And I share very personal stories throughout the book. I educate the reader throughout the book in many of these areas. I provide resources, I provide action items, and I also share all of the triumphs that I've been able to make throughout my healing journey. I share what I've learned in the 12 steps. I go through each one of the steps and what I learned, how it changed my life. And the biggest part of any of this, any of our healing journeys, no matter where we are, it all comes back to our mindset, changing our mindset, right? What goes on between these two ears here, right? Because we are programmed from our past. Our trauma affects us in so many ways. And then our addiction, whatever that may be, while we're masking whatever that pain is, once we stop whatever we're masking with, then we've got to really start approaching those things that we need to heal from. And we need to start peeling back the layers. And how do we do it? Right? And how do we start rewiring our brains? How do we start thinking in different ways? How do we start living in a gratitude mindset? When we live in a gratitude mindset, we attract in our lives the most magical promises that God gives us. And we can't even imagine what could happen for us when we start to do this. And we've got to forgive ourselves. I share how to forgive ourselves, how we can forgive others. And there's just so many tips and resources and a recovery toolbox. And there's just so much in the book. And like I said, I just won the International Impact Award in Addiction and Recovery. And that is because I'm so raw and authentic in the book, but it's also there's so many ways to shift how you are thinking about yourself and how you're thinking about this life. And that's what we have to change so we can start attracting what we want out of this life. And when we're negative, we're going to attract negativity. When we're positive, we're going to attract positive things in our life.
That's awesome. Now, how can we get a hold of this book?
Please go Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and also please go to wakeupwithmarci.com because I share everything that I do there, all about my show. You can see all of my segments there because all of my guests are like you, Jeff. They're sharing transformational stories, sharing stories of hope. And we talk a lot about mental health. We talk a lot about wellness. And I share just so many ways that you can start shifting your mindset so you can live a better life. And I also have a book signing coming up at Barnes and Noble in Union City, in New Jersey. So lots of fun stuff. Lots of fun stuff that's upcoming. And I would just love for you to connect with me there. You know, you can send me an email at wakeupwithmarci@gmail.com. I mean, I just love to connect with people and help in any way that I can, Jeff.
That is amazing, and I know that that's going to help somebody out there. I promise you that. Because whatever they're dealing with, you can relate that in some way to an addiction. And like, all right, let's say that somebody is going through something like a serious car accident and they have a traumatic brain injury. Those steps that you can use in AA or that we can find in your book can be useful in helping somebody recover from that brain injury. And I find that to be quite amazing.
Thank you, Jeff. And the biggest transformational thing that ever happened for me was
Is meeting
finding
me.
self love for myself,
Yeah.
which I didn't have. And it all comes from within, Jeff.
Yes.
Nothing outside of ourselves. It happens here first.
Yeah.
And when we're the best for ourselves, then we can be the best for everyone else.
That's grand. But guys, I need everybody out there, including you, Marci, to do me a favor this week, next week, and for the rest of your life. I need you to make every second count.
Yes.
Why? Because you never know when the seconds are going to run out on your one life. I'll see you guys back here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And until then, have a fantastic week. Thanks again, Marci. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
You have a great night.
You too.